for me, what I would say about the Nintendo Direct is that it was kind of full of surprises. Like there were some things I just didn't expect to see sitting there, especially the Vanillaware game, the new Saga game that threw me for a loop.
Sony had the big name titles, but Nintendo, they didn't slack up. They responded with like a ton of quality AA titles.
Sony started off rocky. He was like, "Oh man, I'm stepping up. You stepping over here? Yeah, I'm stepping over there." I was like, "Yeah, this was somebody." But it ain't me.
And that Final Fantasy VII trailer, that just put a smile on my face from beginning to end. It just had me. It had me hitting that that lean in when you're like watching something. You have to lean in real quick.
Oh yeah,
to get an even closer look at it. That's how I was that entire time.
Yo, what's poppin', everybody? It's the No Level Cap podcast. We back once again with the crew, talking about all the anime, all the gaming, all the nerd culture, none of the bullshit. Let me introduce my co-host. We've got the Black Daredevil and the secret weapon of No Level Cap, Terrence Flowers. What's going on, Terrence?
Hey, things are all good on my end. This week was nice little gaming week. We're leading into Tokyo Game Show and a bunch of other games coming out. So, man, it's a lot to take in, but it's a fun time as always to be a gamer. 2023 is definitely looking legendary. So, yeah, ready to talk about today's topic.
Man, it's legendary not just for games, but like game announcements. It seems like we just getting everything, man.
Hey, man, we eating good. We eating good.
Man,
we are eating good.
Right next up, we got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's going on, Rakeem?
Oh, you know what it is. It has begun. I have been on my favorite fighting game franchise of all time, Mortal Kombat, and it is glorious. Playing through the story mode a little bit before the podcast started, having a good time in practice mode, played online just a little bit, got into the single player modes, and enjoying myself a bit here and there. I had to go to work today, so I took a little time off for that. And really interested in getting into the podcast and discussing these shows. And I shout out to everybody or anybody who watched our live version. We watched the Direct and the PlayStation Live. We appreciate you guys for coming and commenting and doing whatever you do, especially shout out to Tim Bush, who's always a big supporter. He's there every time we do something live. He's there. He's like the first guy in the room. So we appreciate you.
We definitely appreciate you, bro. Next up, we've got the collector of collectors and the master of Twitch, Will Coleman. What's going on, Will?
I just been chilling, just relaxing. Going through this week kind of slow on the work that I usually do, but I ended up getting a couple demos because Square didn't tell us about Star Ocean's second story demo. So I was just like, I found out through Twitter. So I got that downloaded before the podcast started. Be trying to do some of that tonight, working on a video. And I tried to master Twitch this week, but my internet said no.
Hey, man. With Twitch, you never know. Sometimes it's your internet. Sometimes it's Twitch. It's just like it's hard to tell sometimes, man. But next up, we've got One Punch Man and the master of combos himself, Devin Butts. What's going on, Devin?
Man, for me over here, man, it still has not begun. I have a different take on Mortal Kombat because I unfortunately got the PC version and it is hot garbage. So yeah, that's unfortunate. I guess I got to be forced to go ahead and give me an actual next gen console. Well, current gen console because it's not next gen. Yeah, I've been playing MK. Put up my first combo video today. It's been a hassle because it's taking me forever to like navigate, just get to practice mode and go back and change characters. It's a hassle. The game is stuttering like when I go into the game from the character select screen. So yeah, the PC version has not been a fun experience. I have been enjoying the game so far. I hope they got to do something. They got to send a care package. Like somebody said, the game need a patch. Somebody said need a patch. Nah, you need a whole medic. You need there need to be like a surgical team for this because it's rough.
You hear that, NetherRealm Studios? Fix your PC version. We're on your ass.
Chicago Med.
At this point, it's not just NetherRealm. It's Warner Brothers. Like, I don't know what kind of deal y'all got, who y'all hooked up with for your PC ports, but like, you need to work out something else because like, you took Arkham Knight off Steam, if I remember correctly, and now like your MK ports have always been bad. I don't think your Injustice ports have been all that good. Like you got to figure something out because it like that's a growing population of gamers, and you just cutting them out because you just decided like, oh man, it just don't matter to us one way or the other.
I think Fisher Price doing their ports, PC ports.
It could be Fisher Price doing.
No, I think they're doing the Switch port because you think the PC port bad. Although the Switch got your number, the Switch got your number.
I saw something on that too.
Why even make it?
It's like the
It's so
PC
bad.
version is developed by Q-Lock, it looks like. I don't know who they are.
Sound like an anime.
It do sound like an anime studio. It sound like they got locked out of developing. I don't know. Like I'm not with it. Like I'm not with all these like lazy. I'm not with all these lazy ports, man. It just I at this point, at this stage of gaming, it just don't make no sense because like there's so many multi-plat has become so important to so many different games, and like you just missing out on sales. And if you're not careful, you could damage that part of your player base. Like it could get to a point where people are like, "Hey, man, I'm not gonna bother because I know it's never gonna be good."
Yeah.
Yeah. Understandable.
Of course, I'm Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. If you didn't know, No Level Cap goes live every Monday morning. We're on YouTube for video fans. If you prefer the audio version, we're live on Spotify as well. We've also started game streaming. Every Sunday night around 9-10 p.m. Central, you'll find me, Rakeem, Devin playing video games together. Last week it was Starfield, but while playing Starfield, my computer nearly blew the fuck up. So y'all gonna have to give me a chance to fix that. So instead, this week we'll be back with As Dust Falls and seeing if we can find a happy ending to this otherwise wild story.
Yeah.
So going into this week or last week, I told everybody we were planning out what we were going to talk about for this week last week, and I said more likely than not, apropos of nothing, I was just like, we'll probably get a Nintendo Direct and we'll probably get a Sony State of Play. And sure enough, by like Wednesday or Thursday, they announced both. And so we wound up getting both, and I'm like, okay, cool. And on the same day at that, and so it became like a fall E3 almost. And this is probably, and that's actually probably the closest you're gonna get to, fall E3 really, between now and the Game Awards in December. And of course, this is like just ahead of Tokyo Game Show, just ahead of like a lot of these Japanese publishers are gonna start showing off their games, and they wanted to go ahead and get certain things out in the open so everybody's aware of them before they come to Tokyo Game Show. And I just wanted to get a temperature check. I know me, Rakeem, and Devin all did a live reacts to it, but I did want to do a little compare and contrast, maybe get a little deeper on everything. And so I wanted to ask who had the best show, or who do y'all think had the best show between Nintendo and Sony? Terrence, I know, because of course I've got Devin and Rakeem's thoughts a little bit, like cursory thoughts. We'll get deeper later, but I want your thoughts, see what you think.
I actually didn't watch you all's live, so I don't even know what you all thought of it, but so it'll be interesting to hear that now. But as for myself, I'll say that upon initial reaction, I was a bit more negative. No, not negative, but I was kind of like whatever with Nintendo's Direct, and I was a bit more. I was giving a bit more praise to Sony, but taking a step back and kind of looking at things objectively in the past couple of hours as I tried to look back at like the announcements and everything, I think depending on what you are looking for, they're kind of in some ways on the same level, at least to me. It's like for Nintendo, I'll give Nintendo credit is that they announced a lot of stuff that, well, maybe not a lot, but they announced some stuff that we didn't know about. Or if it had been leaked, it hadn't been like confirmed kind of thing. Like I think F-Zero 99 got leaked, but I mean that's still something that we didn't know about. It's
a lot of their games got leaked. Mario vs. Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Like you said,
Thousand Year Door.
No, actually, Thousand Year Door did not get leaked.
Okay.
But like definitely Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and definitely what was the other game that got leaked? Oh, F-Zero 99. And then there was one other game that they kind of like talked about, like, oh yeah, this is probably gonna be there too. But I mean, like all in all, like we didn't know for sure. We just had like hints that,
Yeah, and usually that's the good thing about Nintendo is that they run a pretty tight ship, so it's kind of hard for stuff to leak out, and when it does, you still don't know the full details of it. We just have kind of like some whispers of like what's to come. In the case of Sony, a lot of the stuff that was there for them, we already knew about. It was either like DLC or it's like games that are coming out that we already knew about and them just kind of like further expounding upon it. In terms of which show I liked more, I mean, because I don't own a Switch, I'm naturally more inclined to lean towards Sony's show just because there was more there that I personally would want. But I think if I look at them objectively, I think I would view them on like the same level just because Nintendo had some stuff. Like, it's just that they're not going to have as much big stuff just because, like, obviously the Switch is nearing the end of its run. And with Sony, you know, I was kind of disappointed there was some stuff that wasn't there. Like Stellar Blade not being there kind of threw me for a loop. And
Same.
I guess it seems like that's not going to be talked about until next year, I suppose, or maybe it'll come out next year. But yeah, I was a little disappointed there were some games that Sony didn't talk about that they had shown off like a year ago. Like the fact that I think the last time they really talked about Stellar Blade was September of last year. I don't think they've talked about it this year. Yeah. So the fact we haven't seen any kind of update from that game this year is really wild. But yeah, I think me personally, I would go with the Sony show just because, I mean, Final Fantasy VII and some other stuff that they announced there. But I think also if you're a Nintendo fan, Nintendo has some stuff for you there. I mean, Mario versus Donkey Kong being announced, that was pretty cool. And F-Zero 99. But yeah, personally, I would go with the Sony show. But I don't think you really could go wrong either way. At least that's just my opinion. I don't think either one necessarily trumped the other. I think if you're a Nintendo fan, there was something there for you. If you were a Sony fan, there was something there for you. So, yeah.
If you had to 1 through 10 real quick for us.
Oh, okay.
For both.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that.
Sounds like you thinking leaning towards 7.
Yeah, I guess 7 is, yes. 7 for probably both of them. Because, I mean, they weren't like the strongest shows ever, but they weren't like absolutely weak or worth skipping. So I think 7's probably where I land for both of them.
Fair. Devin, man, what do you think, man? Like, you want to go a little bit in depth on what you thought, like, of the shows, of the stuff we watched on stream?
So I think both of these are pretty decent. I will say I think obviously Nintendo's was longer, so they just had more content in general to show. And Sony's was kind of a rocky start. We all were watching that live, and I was about to turn my computer off. But Nintendo, I will say Nintendo, there was a good amount of games that they showed. Although the one thing I did notice, a lot of the stuff was kind of like remakes or like stuff that's already been out. So that's one thing I would say, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I will say I think in terms of like in the past, normally like at the end of a cycle, those last games is going to be on that consoles like for those last few months, usually like the big heavy hitters. But there was some stuff that it definitely looks like the Mario RPG remake looks phenomenal. The Paper Mario, I like Paper Mario, that looks pretty good. What else did they show? What was the game? I already forgot about it. But they showed a lot of RPGs. That's one thing I
talking
will
about
do.
Vanillaware RPG?
Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will say, man. It was a solid amount of RPGs at this show, and like, I mean, I'm pretty sure if anybody's watching, most of us, all of us on this panel, are RPG fans. So I will say, like, I think that my hat is off to them. I'll give them an extra point for just like showing a lot of RPG, because sometimes you might see one splash in there, like 1 or 2, but they had like, I think like 5 or 6 maybe, and some pretty big ones too. I think it was serviceable. That their show was pretty good. Nintendo was pretty solid. I also don't have a Switch, but I am a Nintendo. I do like Nintendo's games, and they show some pretty solid stuff. Now on the flip end, I am biased because Sony showed off. Really, to me, next year, I really can't think of a game next year that's going to be game of the year for me besides that one. I just don't know. Final Fantasy VII. Like I said, Sony started off rocky. He was like, "Oh man, I'm stepping up. You stepping over here? Yeah, I'm stepping over there.
You stepping on the beach?
I was about to cut my screen off.
Stepping on the beach.
Like,
that was a problem because you were like doing the streaming for us, so it would have been bad.
Like, bro, I was so thrown. Like, and I knew when I saw the style and like the walking, I'm like, this is, and I couldn't think of the name, but we said it just before we started recording. I was like, this is exactly what this is. I can't remember the name of the game, but it's got that weird style, and the physics is like weird where you have to like. And I was like, this
Getting
is what
over
it is. Yes. But the one with like the rock, like it's a dude, he like tumbles. That's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it. Okay. I was like, yeah, this was somebody, but it ain't me. I was like, I like some weird stuff. I like, but it was just so you. Hey man, overall, I gotta walk over there. Like, what is happening? What are real games in? Then they had some VR. I was like, all right, man, Sony, y'all, this one might not be it. You start off with that and VR. All right, man, let's what are real games at? Because this ain't it. But they kind of got their act together. The Avatar game looks pretty solid. I'm gonna be honest, that's not been on my radar at all. But after seeing like more fleshed out gameplay and like just showing what the game looks like, this actually looks like it could be solid. Spider-Man, of course, I'm sure everybody here is waiting to play that. They showed off the costumes. They show like the game looks phenomenal. The wingsuit, all that, it looks fantastic. So I'm sure everybody's waiting to get their hands on that. That's a no-brainer. But yeah, FF7 did it for me. When I saw it, I was like, well, that's really it for me. It made the whole show. And I do agree with Terrence that they both had strengths and weaknesses. But if I had to give a number to them, I'm gonna give Nintendo 8. I think it was a solid thing. Like I said, there was a lot of remakes and rehashes of things we've already seen, but they do like some solid games. They're just trying to give like a little bit to play before the Switch 2 comes into the horizon. And I'm giving Sony a 10 because he had FF7.
Damn.
I'm biased.
Hey,
you all know
biased
this.
but honest.
I respect it. I respect that.
They show. I mean, I'm gonna say this, then I'm shut up. The fact that they have like translated stuff so well with that game, like we talked about this, like the moments where we thought like, oh, they're not gonna have this in the game because it's gonna be weird because it's like realistic now. They still got the chocobos. They got a Red 13 riding a chocobo. Like that's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Like,
I swear,
sir,
bro.
You are a quadruped. Well, chocobos got 2 legs, so I guess I don't know. But yeah, like they got the golden saucer. They got the arcade games. I'm like, I just want to play it. So yeah, I mean it's a 10, and I'm biased. All right, I'm done.
I mean, I appreciate the biased honesty. That's all.
Biased out of 10.
Biased out of 10. Exactly.
Biased out of 10.
Will, what'd you think of the shows?
Well, I ended up actually getting up, much to my dismay, because I'm really not an early morning person to do a live react to the Nintendo Direct, and I ended up watching it. I gotta say, for me, what I would say about the Nintendo Direct is that it was kind of full of surprises. Like there were some things I just didn't expect to see sitting there, especially the Vanillaware game, the new Saga game. That threw me for a loop because I follow behind the dev team and I'm a fan of the series, and they only been talking about TGS. So I'm just like, okay, TGS, I'll be seeing this next week. I shouldn't have to worry about nothing next week. Then it pulled up there, and I'm just like, okay, thank you. I ain't expect that, and I'm happy. I'm happy with the things they did, especially at the end there, because I didn't expect to see 1,000-Year Door of all things get made. So if I had to give a point to Nintendo, it would be that y'all are actually opening up y'all history books and being like, we can go back and make some stuff and pull it back to the front, even though we know this is like the last stretch of the Switch. So I want to give Nintendo their credit for doing exactly what it is they are doing. So shout out to you, Nintendo. It's just y'all still need to do better in a few other areas, but we ain't gonna talk about that. Sony, rocky start, very rocky start, very with baby steps and
literally
the thing. Yeah, with baby steps and the VR. I'm not even gonna hold you. The VR stuff was definitely getting me till they showed separate ways, which I was very happy for. I'm just like, that gives me a reason to put more time into RE4. Get to play Mercenaries for another 10, 20 hours. Just enjoy that. Enjoy that. The biggest thing that I think showed up, aside from knowing Spider-Man is on his way, because God knows, I'm pretty sure all of us in here are going to try to play that when it hits the shelf. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I love every single little detail they put in there. I love the tag team combinations they got going on. I just love how everything looks. I see we get to do the march. Like, you know what I'm talking about, Devin. Having to fall in line with the soldiers marching and making sure you're doing the right shit so that way you blend in. But when Trey Lee got a sword on his back, and I'm like, you sticking out, Cloud. You might want to take that sword off. So I gotta give Sony show. I'm gonna give them about a good 8, and I'm gonna probably give Nintendo an 8. I'm giving Nintendo an 8 strictly for the stuff that I just didn't expect to see, and I'll give PlayStation the 8 because I mean I'm playing Spider-Man, no doubt, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm gonna put my pre-order down on that later tonight, so that way I can be sure that it's gonna see this doorstep when I be here. So I got what I wanted.
Okay, that's what's up. I actually think I'm kind of with Terrence. I think it was pretty close between the two of them, but I'm gonna give the edge to Nintendo. Sony had the big name titles, but Nintendo, they didn't slack up. They responded with like a ton of quality AA titles. Because they like the thing that I was impressed by is they're constantly giving their fans new games to play. Sony, when you think about it, this year they really only had Spider-Man 2 and Forspoken. I'm not counting Final Fantasy 16 because that was a multi-plat franchise and you just shelled out some money to force it to be on your console. New IPs, I will give a pass to a company for because maybe that IP wouldn't have existed if you didn't spend money on it. But Final Fantasy has been multi-platform for a while now. And so, like, I'm looking at Sony and I'm like, dang, like, y'all really only had these 2 games. Nintendo, they feel like they got a real plan. Like for a console that is supposed to be winding down, and I agree with Devin, it is a lot of remakes, it is a lot of remasters, but like it's the final year of the console. Like it's supposed to be winding down, but like they're going out great. You know, at the end of the year, at the end they were showing the sizzle reel, and I was watching it with Devin and Rakeem, and I was like, what's the point of the sizzle reel? But then I thought about it, I'm like, this is like, hey man, this is what we got coming every month from September, and it carried all the way into like fucking April or some shit. I'm like, damn. You think about Sony, like, man, wait, next year you don't know what's coming. Like once you get past Helldivers and Final Fantasy Rebirth, and I again like that should be a multi-plat thing, but like once you get past Helldivers and Rebirth, that's both in February. That's it. Like yeah, it's like oh, well, what's the next big what's the next big Sony game? Like I don't know.
Jack
and
4.
you know, yeah, I guess Jack 4. Shit.
The Last of Us Part 2.5.
Well,
medieval again.
Actually, the Last of Us multiplayer, Last of Us Factions, is supposed to be on the way. They just ran into like some issues. I think they're scaling it back from what it was originally going to be, which sounded like it was going to be similar to Destiny with like an expanding story and shit like that. I don't think it's going to be like that anymore. I think it's just going to be like a straightforward multiplayer experience. You do have all the other multiplayer games that they announced earlier this year at the PlayStation meeting. Fair Games, you know, with the $ at the end, Concord, Marathon. And then of course you do have a few other games like Ghost of Tsushima. That's that's bound to get a sequel soon. Whatever it is that Naughty Dog is working on outside of The Last of Us, because they are working on something else. And what's my man? The studio that did Days Gone, Sony Bend. They're working on something as well. And so you have like all those studios that are all working on different things, but like you don't know anything. Oh, and Wolverine, that's the last thing.
Yeah.
But like of all that stuff, like when is any of that coming out? Like I don't know. There's no roadmap. It's just at some point we're putting out games, I guess. And I mean, like I would prefer something that's more defined. And so, like to some extent, that we have no idea what's coming is good. I talked about this with the guys too, because it means you're no longer telling us about games that are 2 and 3 and 4 years off. But it also feels like everything is empty. Like I don't know that I love that. And like as far as Sony goes, like it really was anchored by like 2 games for me. Of course, our Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah,
I like the look of that. Of course, I'm not as big a Final Fantasy VII fan as everybody else in the cast, but I am a fan of it. And I am a huge fan of Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man last year when I played it, I played it before on PS4, but I played it again remastered PC. Easily one of my favorite games of the last 5 years. So I'm super looking forward to 2, which puts me in an interesting spot. If you'll let me take a little bit of a detour for a second. Sony is at this point now where I'm like, damn, I don't need y'all no more. Like I'm really at the point. I don't own a PlayStation 5, and I'm really at the point now where I'm like, I might be buying a PlayStation 5 solely for Spider-Man 2, I guess. Like, because like there's a rumor from like a very reliable source that Horizon 2 is coming to coming to PC. And so once you get that out of the way, Ratchet and Clank came over. Like I was never a big Sony first party fan to begin with. And so like I really just bought Sony consoles because they had JRPGs, they had the games that I loved. And now it's like, oh, that shit's over with. Like all the JRPGs are multi-plat now. Final Fantasy VII, like that, even that, at the end of that trailer, they were very specific to let you know, like, hey, the exclusivity period is like 3 months. That's it. And so, like, if I'm willing to wait, like, maybe 6 to 8 months, which I am, because, like I said, that's not a top priority for me. Like, the only game they have now is Spider-Man 2 for me. And I'm like, man, what a weird situation to be in. But other than that, like, outside of that, like, when I think about the show, I'm like, man, like, just like y'all said, baby steps. It felt like the video game version of all those weird William Street cartoons. VR is just in an unfortunate position right now. Like, it should be like, it's an eye roll now. Like, you get to VR and everybody goes, oh, fuck, how long is this section going to last? That's not good. It should not be that way. Like, this is VR 2. Like, that means we tried it before and, like, we're trying it again. And it's supposed to be like we're building on what we had last time. But instead, it feels like the equivalent of the Vita, where like the PS Portable was really big. What's up, Terrence?
I was just gonna say we're waiting on our Lord and Savior Apple to come and save VR.
We waiting on somebody because they're gonna be Sony. Like it's in this weird spot where like with the PlayStation Portable, that wound up being like a smash hit. 80 million consoles sold, did great, and then the Vita came out. And it's like we gonna support it a little bit, I guess, but like y'all not here for it, so we not gonna make too many games for it. We gonna move on really quickly. And if we're not careful, that's where PSVR 2 is going to wind up, unless they're just that devoted to making sure, absolutely sure, that they put out a PSVR 2, support it throughout the lifespan of the PS5, and maybe put out a 3. So that's really unfortunate. But all in all, I'm going to give Nintendo an 8, and I'm going to give Sony a 7. I think Nintendo just did enough to edge. Especially since they had just like games for everybody, Princess Peach Showtime, Saga Emerald Beyond, fucking, F-Zero 99, the League of Legends. They had something for everybody. And then Sony was like, look, we got 7 games. I think it was like 7 to 9 games. And then they got out of there. And, like, just for that, I'm going to say it's edged out Nintendo. Rakeem, where do you stand?
Kind of similar to you. I feel like when I watched the Nintendo Direct compared to the Sony State of Play, there was no point in the Nintendo Direct where I was really disappointed in what I was seeing. Even though I'm not a Nintendo fan, like looking at the library of games, you kind of like, certain times you like to see like Mario games or Donkey Kong games, F-Zero games. I just like the structure of it more. I felt like the games that came out or were surprises, they had a lot of charm to them. The Princess Peach game, especially, like seeing the details of how that game worked, it surprised me. It put a smile on my face. I had a smile on my face for a lot of these games. Mario versus Donkey Kong. I never was the biggest Mario fan, but I freaking love Donkey Kong. So see my boy Donkey Kong as the villain, like, okay, we got Donkey Kong representation. Maybe we'll get another game down the line. Fingers crossed.
That might be a launch game for Switch 2 or something.
Yeah. F-Zero 99. Hey, at least we got F-Zero something. I was when I first saw the trailer, I didn't know about the F-Zero 99 leak. So when I first saw the trailer, I was like, HD remake? Button on buying Switch right now?
To be fair, F-Zero 99, like the name leaked, but nothing else about it leaked. And so it could have been anything. Instead of being like, oh, here's the SNES game, but we tweaked it so it could be a battle royale. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's interesting, and that's interesting in its own way, I guess, to a certain degree. But yeah, I like the structure, but just overall, I like the structure of the Nintendo Direct a little more because it felt like it was the Mario and Friends showcase a little bit. If you really like Mario, this show was for you because everybody who messed with Mario got represented. I like the DLCs, like Splatoon DLC that showed off. The new Vanillaware game, I think it got announced earlier, didn't it? Like the day before or something like that?
No,
am I incorrect? Was that day?
They've just been talking about like, oh yeah,
right.
It's done. Yeah. You're gonna see it soon, but we didn't know anything about it. They just popped up like surprise. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that was really cool. A new tactics game. I love the art direction for that. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I gotta learn more about this game. It just looks so cool. I'm in a tactics mood. We're in a tactics renaissance right now, so we might as well keep it moving. And Vanillaware taking the charge of that got me excited. So I just liked generally what they had. Now, on the flip side, I will say for the state of play, like me, Sage, and Devin, not everyone may agree to this. We did not like this first game. I just didn't care. I get it. Just because I get it don't mean I like it. I get it. And then we moved on to the VR games. VR has never caught my attention. I have never cared about it. I'm not buying a VR headset, so that's something that's like kind of a downer. And that was the downer period for it. But it picked back up in the middle. Seeing Prince of Persia again was pretty nice.
Had like Ghost Runners and shit.
Ghost Runner,
Ghost Runner 2.
Spider-Man, Ghost Runner 2, right? That actually looks pretty cool. I actually kind of want to try that game out. Of course, the big two
it's
highlights.
hard as hell.
I believe it. I believe it. Like speed runner souls. That's what it looked like.
Oh shit!
Speed runner may cry. But of course the big two highlights: Spider-Man 2. I was a big fan of the Spider-Man game that came out in 2018. I had a great time with that game. Enjoyed the heck out of it. Was it 2018 or 2019? When did it come out?
2018.
Okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed that game. I was talking about this with Sage earlier as well about looking for the improvements they had, the stuff we saw with the open world and more events, the costume direction, the abilities, just the fact we're having a tag team kind of thing with him and Miles, you can switch on the fly, improvements to the swinging with the wingsuit. I'm like, oh, this is going to be amazing. But, we got to the main event, and the main event, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, man, I think I had my fingers in the air, like doing this the whole time, like Daniel Bryan in 2014 with the Yes Movement. I wanted that game right now. During the stream, I pulled my wallet out. I was like, let's go ahead and pay for this. This getting bought immediately. Man, that game looks so beautiful. Every scene brought a memory of my childhood. I remember exactly where they were when around Cosmo Canyon and the Midgard-Zolom and certain areas you see in the game. Vincent Valentine's reveal just adapted so well. And my biggest question was like, okay, how they gonna twist it this time? Because it's exactly what they did with the first game. And in the middle of the game, they changed things up. So I'm really actually excited about the things they're going to retain and the things they're going to change with that game. I'm just excited in general. But yeah, those two games kind of were the heavy-handed carriers of that conference. So I kind of have to dock PlayStation a little bit because I just did not like the opening as much. So I'm very similar to Sage. I'll give the Nintendo Direct about an 8 and the Sony about a 7, only because the Direct never had that, to me, that lull time. Every game I saw had some kind of charm to it. I felt like it fit exactly where it needed to be. It felt like a plan. It felt like it was more organized. And the PlayStation one, although it had a direction, it wasn't really most of it. A lot of it wasn't anything I cared for at all. So it's besides the big two games, of course.
So in the middle of this, I was chuckling, and the reason why I was chuckling is because I looked, because I have the list of both for the conferences for both, and I realized not a one of us brought up that Avatar game.
I did.
Yeah, Devin did.
Yeah, Devin made a slight mention of it.
I was gonna maybe mention it later, but no, I didn't just.
I was thinking that too, but I'll just say.
Oh, you gonna mention it later, huh? Well, let me ask you, because I guess this is a good a time as any to segue into it. What was your favorite game from both shows? For me, it's an easy one. Eiyuden Chronicle. God, I've been waiting for that game for forever. Getting a release date was fantastic. I had the biggest smile on my face when I first saw it. I was just like, Suikoden has always been one of my favorite video game franchises, and to finally get a spiritual successor from the creator, and it looks as good as you could imagine. The only way it could look better is if it was just fully 3 HD graphics, that type shit. But I mean, for a Kickstarter project, this is everything I could have asked for and more. They have all the mechanics and stuff that I missed from old Suikoden games, hopefully modernized for a new era. It's probably one of the biggest games I'm looking forward to next year. It comes out April, I believe, mid-April.
April 25th. April 25th or 24th.
Something like that.
4/24/24.
April 23rd. April 23rd.
Oh, 23rd? Okay, yeah. I was about to say April 24th. I was like, yeah.
So yeah, that's easily my favorite game from them. Honorable mention, really the 1B to the 1A Super Mario RPG. Again, one of my favorite video games of all time. One of the reasons I play video games today in the first place. Looked great. Love the different mechanics that they added. Little post game stuff if you want to get into it. Loving that. I do wonder if they're going to keep that hidden boss that was basically a Final Fantasy V reference. I wonder if they're going to keep that guy. Especially if you already have the post game stuff. Like, are you gonna keep that guy? Is he gonna have a post game mode because he was already in your ass in the main game?
Yes.
So I'm pretty curious about it. I'm excited to check that out. And then of course, no contest for me. I know everybody else is probably gonna say the other game, but for me, it's Spider-Man 2 all day. I mean, like, I love if I got a superhero game every year, if that was good, I would not complain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know there are a lot of people who are just like, oh man, I'm tired of all these superheroes and I don't want them anymore, and I can't wait till this fad is over. Not me. I'm not the one saying that shit. Like, I can care less about the movies, but as far as video games go, if you can deliver a quality Spider-Man level experience, like Marvel Spider-Man, if you can deliver that quality every year, I take it. Like, with a different hero, like, I'm never gonna get tired of it. So, like, for Spider-Man 2 to look as good as it does and have, like, not just Spider-Man, not just Peter, but Miles as well, like, oh man, I can't wait. I hope that game, quite frankly, if there's one game that could convince me to buy a $500 console by itself, it would be something like a superhero game, like Spider-Man, or more likely an Iron Man. That would be the one that would make me do it. Devin, would you have a favorite game from both shows? I know one of them, but, like, you know.
Just
Dylon.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say the obvious. FF7, like, that was just a no-brainer at all. If that wasn't there, Spider-Man definitely would have been the runner-up. Nintendo, I think I'm gonna have to say that Super Mario RPG, I think, was the winner for me, because I never played that game, and it was always like, when I was younger for a while, I didn't even know the game existed. It was like the craziest thing. Like, wait, like, I'm like, wait, I thought Mario was just a platform. I'm like, they have an RPG. And I know me and Terrence have played it. We was big fans of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, which please bring that back. That was awesome. So, I would love it. And I mean, it draws from Super Mario RPG, like the timed attacks, the team moves and stuff like that. And it looks pretty great. It looks phenomenal for it to be like a remake. The little cutesy, like, toy-ish kind of look they have to, like, the character models is, like, in full effect. It looks amazing now on the new hardware. It looks pretty dope, and I'm an RPG fan. It's got the little time attacks. I just beat Sea of Stars, and it has a little inspiration from that with, like, the timing attacks and timing, like, having to block and stuff, the team attacks. So yeah, that for me, like I said, Nintendo had a lot of RPGs. I just forgot about Eiyuden Chronicles. Like, it had like 6 or 7. So again, my hat is off to them for showing a lot of RPGs, and they all look pretty good for the most part. None of them really look like any slackers. So yeah, like I said, I've never played that game. I've seen, like, bits of it before, and I think I've seen that boss that Sage just mentioned, and it's the craziest juxtaposition, because it's like you got these Mario characters, and they look like they fighting like a final boss of Final Fantasy. And then again, I didn't know at first that it's done by Square, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just like, wow, I never knew that. I was like, so that's why it makes sense that this was such a solid RPG experience, and also some of these enemies look like, summons or bosses from Final Fantasy. So it's almost, dare I say, that's kind of like, and I never thought about this until now, but dare I say that was kind of the prototype for, like, the Kingdom Hearts formula. Like, these very drastically different kind of, like, worlds, and, like, even just gameplay styles, like, coming together, and seeing Mario fighting, like, something look like Bahamut. Like, that's just wild. Like, it's actually kind of even more wild than, like, Disney and, like, the Square thing. But yeah, I think it looks dope. Even Paper Mario, I kind of would like to group those two, because they're kind of similar. But that looks amazing. I'm a fan of Paper Mario. I haven't finished all of them, but I played. I forgot which one I played. I played it for a good bit. I enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm going to give it a Super Mario RPG. And like I said, you already know, for me, it's a no-brainer. FF7. I ain't got to say nothing else. I ain't got to say nothing else.
All right. Terrence, what you got? What were your favorite games from both shows?
For Nintendo, I think my favorite game, just because it was such a big surprise to see it there, would be Unicorn Overload. Just seeing a new Vanillaware game is always nice, and seeing the direction that they're going in with this one after 13 Sentinels, it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm definitely down for this. And it's cool that it's multi-platform, so it's not a Switch exclusive, but it's nice to see that something like that was announced at Nintendo's conference. I will say that for me, maybe a nice runner-up would be Mario vs. Donkey Kong, just because I didn't expect them to remake that game. I mean, that's a Game Boy Advance game, and to see them reach deep into their pocket and bring that one out and slap the remake coat of paint on it, I think it I think it looks really nice. And yeah, it's something that I wasn't expecting and was happy to see it there. So yeah, for me, I think Nintendo, I'll give it to Unicorn Overload, just because that game looks really cool and I can't wait to see more. For Sony, I mean, it's like Devin said. I mean, it's obvious. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I mean, I like Spider-Man 2. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy the footage that they show. Like all the suits that they have in that game, like over 65 suits, or I think it is 65. It's like, man, it's a lot. And gameplay wise, it looks even better than the original. So I highly look forward to that game. I'm sure that game is going to be amazing. But yeah, that Final Fantasy VII trailer, that just put a smile on my face from beginning to end. It just had me. It had me hitting that, that lean in when you're like watching something. You have to lean in real quick.
Oh yeah,
to get an even closer look at it. That's how I was that entire time. And then when they revealed that release date at the end, I let out a scream on that one. I was like, yes, even sooner than we expected, because all of us were predicting like that March, April window, February. So it's like, yeah, okay, yeah. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, man, I don't have the words. It definitely. They really know how to tug on the heartstrings with these trailers. It's so interesting to me, at least, to see like the contrast between 16 and like 7 in terms of the way that the marketing has gone for both of them. Whereas like 7 really knows how to pull on like the nostalgia strings. 16 was really trying to bring you into his world and like really capture you with its new combat. So it's just really interesting to see the marketing differences. I'm not like pitting the two against each other, so like calm down, Final Fantasy fans. I'm not saying you have to pick one over the other. You can play both, but it's just interesting to see the marketing approach for both of them. We are what?
Exactly. We are playing both.
Oh yeah,
we playing both.
Yeah, but I just want to make that clear before anybody gets it twisted. That's not me trying to pit them against each other. It's just me bringing up a point. But yeah, Rebirth looks amazing, and yeah, for me that was the game of the show for the state of play.
Will, where do you stand, man?
All right, I stand. I'm gonna start with Sony, and I'm gonna get it out the way. I will even do the 1A, 1B, because honestly, my 1A is definitely going to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Just like Terrence. I couldn't have put it any better. Terrence put it right there. It's doing everything to get at people who have played the original, and it is just showing it bit by bit. It is showing the work they put in. They have made this game almost like from the ground up, but I'm sure they've done a lot of changes too, and I'm ready to see what those changes are. I've been basically avoiding a lot of that talk on Twitter because I've seen a lot of it, even coming from the official themselves, just like, hey, we're going to tell you about this. Now, like, I don't want to know nothing. Let me get the disc, the 2 disc. Let me get the 2 disc in my hand and play this game.
I was about to do that too. Great minds think alike.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. But yes, I'm ready for that. And my 1B is definitely going to be Spider-Man 2, because I'm sorry, but that game is just too gorgeous for me to not put my hands on it and just sit here. Like I stream, but I'm not even going to hold you. I'm not going to stream Spider-Man. I'm playing that for a full-on personal experience. That is for me to do. I don't need nobody in my ear. I don't need to see no text chats. I need to be immersed between me, Miles, and Pete. Surfing around New York, slinging web, kicking ass, and taking names. That's what I'm here to do on Spider-Man. I'm ready for that. Now, for Nintendo, Unicorn Overlord is definitely up there for me, because I didn't expect that to show up. That was a nice surprise for me, because I'm not going to lie, when I saw it, I was like, what is this game? What is this? I can't really put my finger on it. But once I started seeing more of the art, and then I looked down and I realized I got the Odin Spirit Storybook Edition. I looked at that art. I said, "Oh my God, it's Vanillaware. They in here. What is this?" And it's a tactics game. If that game is good, expect me to shill it. Trust me, I will have the case on this podcast, on my stream, and probably in a couple pictures. Maybe even when I'm at my wedding. You never know. So if it's great, I'm here for it. But my little tiny wouldn't be surprised. Saga Emerald Beyond. As someone who's a Button Saga fan right now, as much as they talked about that game being at TGS and for it to appear in this direct, shocked me. I'm just like, I was like, whoa, Saga series, y'all talk about this now? Final Fantasy's little brother is here? That's crazy. I didn't expect that. So, and it's built off of the Scarlet Grace style of gameplay. So I'm ready to play that. I want to see how that works. I'm definitely gonna try to see if I can play as the robot diva, the songstress mech that lost her voice. I want to see what that's all about.
That was creative.
That was very creative. Saga is very quirky. For those of y'all who have never played it, it is a very quirky series of RPGs. So if you've never played it, give it a shot. It's well worth the time if you can get down with it. So yeah, that's me.
I'll just make that correction for me. It's like, yeah, it's Overlord, right? Unicorn Overlord.
Yeah, it's Overlord.
For some reason, when I was looking it up, like I was seeing places called Overload, and that's what was throwing me off. I was like, is it Overlord or Overload?
I mean, that's even crazier.
It sounds lit too.
Sound like a
There's
action
a
game.
lot of unicorns out here.
Sound like the special move of a unicorn. That's what it sounds like. Rakeem, what you got for us, man? What was your favorite game from both shows?
Okay, so kind of like y'all, I was gonna say Unicorn Overload. See, that's the problem. When you start with a lie, it permeates through your speech. It comes out, and that lie was told, and that's in me. And I'm saying Overload too. Unicorn Overlord, the Vanillaware game, really caught me by surprise. I actually was waiting on this for a while because of the information that Vanillaware put out that they were pretty much almost done with the game a while back, and they were just ready to announce it. And I thought that was dope. That was kind of a cool way, like, oh man, it's building hype. Y'all ready? Y'all about it? Okay. But surprisingly, that was not my favorite game I saw at the show. My favorite game I saw at the show was that Princess Peach game. It was so freaking charming. I love charm, man. And that game, like the set pieces being done in a theater-like situation.
That was really cool.
These different styles of gameplay, depending on her costumes.
Rakeem was like, maybe she got a martial artist Peach, and I'd be damn if she go straight into that martial arts outfit and started giving
I was like, yo, this is really freaking, like, it was so cool and so Nintendo, man. Nintendo just has a way of getting charm. Like we talked about, Terrence just talked about how Square Enix and FF7 Remake have had a great job of pulling nostalgia just right. Nintendo pulls charm just right. When you're watching their games, you can't really hate what you're seeing. Like it's not corny. It's charming. It's like cute. It's never going too far one way or the other. It's just right. And I felt like the Princess Peach game blew my socks off with the presentation. It was like watching a TV show or something like that. Every part of a trailer led you to another part of like, okay, this part's more of a detective section. You got to look for clues and things. And this is a martial arts section. You got mini games. That game looked fire to me. Like if I had a daughter, heck, screw a daughter. If I had a Switch, I would try it. I would try it out and see how I liked it. I thought that was a show stealer for me. It surprised me how well it was. I just talked about this is like the coming of age for all the Mario ensemble. And Princess Peach's last game was on a DS. And for various reasons, it is kind of an infamous game. If you know the history. So this is they learned their lesson. This is a game that said, hey, we messed up over a decade ago. We're going to get it right this time. And, it's about time, like for, Mario is the first, hero, it's kind of the heroine story as well. So I think it looks good. Now, on PlayStation side, I'm not going to be long, y'all. We know what it is. Man, I've been waiting. Oh my God, Rebirth for so long. It feels like it's been ages. We're finally getting it. I still remember when I played the remake, when I first started the game up, it did the bombing mission scene. And I saw Cloud jump off that train and I audibly said, welcome back. And I almost cried. I had an emotional moment. This series means so much to me. I've been playing this since I was 9-10 years old. Like, it's one of the earliest memories of my youth. Playing with my cousins when we were kids in a simpler time. You know, my cousins put me on. We would share boss fights. When we couldn't beat the boss, we get to control your older cousin and he helped you beat the boss, and just traversing the world. I never, leaving Midgar and realizing, oh, there's more game? There's more game? I thought the other two discs were just music. I know it was 3 discs. So it was just like music. I had never played a game that big before. I'd only play like Crash and Spyro. You know what I'm saying? Like, you play a few levels, you're done. A level-based structure. Then this game is like, hey, man, it's a whole new world out here. So, like, exploring that world in a new age, but, like, in a way of this open environment that I saw as a kid, when I was like 9 or 10 years old. It was such a big moment. Doing it all over again for an open world, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. I'm so looking forward to this. There was nothing else to make me feel this way. I'm going to play Spider-Man 2. I'm definitely going to enjoy that. It's going to be awesome. But this means something to me. So I got to get down with Rebirth, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So that stole my show. That's my favorite game of the show.
Preach.
Almost a clean sweep. Actually, you talked about how it feels like it had been forever since the last one, but like the reality is they got that out pretty quickly.
It did.
It's coming out the top of 2024. Like, that's, you think about, and I saw this on Kind of Funny, so I'm taking the idea from there. But like, you think about like all the games that came out in 2020, none of those have sequels right now. Ghost of Tsushima, like the sequel for that is probably 2 years off from now. The Last of Us remake, Last of Us Part 2. I guess if you want to count the Last of Us remake, but like other than that, like no, there's no Last of Us. Like, so a lot of the big games that came out in 2020, like they don't have remake, they don't have new sequel games yet. Like, they're just you got what you got, and you better go back and replay it if you want it. And Final Fantasy, Square Enix has done a great job to me, even though like the gamers won't let them have it. But to me, they've done a great job of shedding that image that we had during the PS3 era, where it was like, hey man, this game came out, this game got announced in 2009. Well, I guess we'll see it in 2016 or some shit like that. Like, time has passed. Like, they when they tell you they've got a game coming out, you can rest assured that you're going to see it in 2 to 3 years, the same timeline that everybody else is on, sometimes better. Like, they started showing off this game like not that long ago, and already we have a date. Like, everybody thought this game was years off, and all of a sudden Square's like, nah, it's not years off, bro. Like, it's coming out near the top of 2024. Like, normally March and January and February are kind of like soft months, not lately, but usually they used to be like soft months, and you'd play like, some of the games you didn't get to during the holidays, and it's like, oh, I'll just play those. And Square's like, no, you gonna come play us. Like, you gonna come play Rebirth right now. And that game is going to be a hit. Like, I have a feeling that game's gonna do better than 16 did at launch.
I do too.
I do too.
I'm feeling that.
Yeah.
I've seen a bit of pushback. I've seen a bit of pushback. People saying, "Oh, I don't think this is gonna sell as well. It's a sequel and yada yada." And I'm like, I don't think it matters.
No,
I think people are gonna see this game, and like not only the people who already bought Final Fantasy VII Remake, but like other people are gonna come in. Like, I saw people trying to buy, and this is a bit of a segue, but like I saw people trying to buy fucking Trails into Reverie, Keem, and they was like, oh yeah, how much do I need to know to play Trails into Reverie? And I'm like, that's part 10 of a 10-part series. Like, if you're jumping in here, bro, like, you about to be lost. There's nothing I can do to help you. And so people
jump on YouTube and watch a explain Trails to
compilation.
You're gonna have to watch an 8-hour video, bro. Like, it ain't nothing to be done. Like, I'm sorry.
Some dude gonna be like, I didn't really understand the plot, but I like the combat, so I kept playing.
Exactly.
I gotta ask.
What's up?
Who said that this is not gonna? Do they underestimate Final Fantasy VII fans?
Well, to be honest with you, 7 Remake didn't sell as much as I thought it should have sold.
Right.
Like, I thought it sold 5 million copies, and just recently they said it
just
sold
recently
7, and I'm like, that's weak sauce sales to me. Like, I would have expected more from a franchise that's from like a game that's got the kind of legacy around it that 7 has. Right. But like, I don't think it matters that this is a sequel, because like I said, like if there are people willing to start at part 10 of a 10-part series, they definitely willing to start at part 2. You look at The Witcher 3, like nobody played Witcher 2 and Witcher 1. They definitely didn't play Witcher 1. And like that didn't stop people from you say, what? Oh, you tried it?
Witcher 1. I played Witcher 1. I had it.
I think I had Witcher 1. I don't think I played it. Witcher 2, you could still go back and play Witcher 2.
Yeah.
It don't look that bad compared to Witcher 3.
I actually own all of them. So yeah, I understand you coming from.
But like people, they jumped into Witcher 3 and just played that. So like I don't think that I think if anything, the good ratings of 7 Remake and like the general fan reception, it's just gonna push more people to check this game out and be like, oh, I want to see what they're talking about.
That deal might help too, actually.
You say what?
That deal I saw where you can get like both games for like $70.
Oh, the double pack is super helpful. It's you basically pay the base price of like what the new game is gonna be if you get it standard online, and you get that and Remake integrate. So you can hop right on in from that point right there. You buy the game, you'll get Remake integrated right now, and you'll have the other game ready to go when it get ready to come out.
Nah, that's gonna do numbers. Like I guarantee it. But I have one last question before we close out. With this direct, like everybody was thinking, there were some people who were overly hopeful, and they were like, "Oh, maybe we get like some Switch 2 news." And I was like, "Ain't no fucking way, boy.
No,
ain't no fucking way. Like you out your shit. Like is we too far off from Switch 2, whenever that is? Which is the question. How far away does the Switch 2 feel to you after this show? Because I knew it wasn't coming this fall. Obviously, like you would have started the hype cycle for it before then. But the Switch 1 came out in March 2017. Like that's when the Switch 1 came out, and so it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that Switch 2 could have hit in March. But I don't know that I feel that way now, and so now I kind of want to get everybody's. I want to take a temperature and see what everybody thinks. Devin, what do you think?
I mean, most of the games I think from this was like slated for like February, I believe, somewhere in that time frame.
They ran all the way into like March.
They technically ran into summer because Luigi Dark Moon comes out summer 2024.
Yes,
yeah,
okay. That was one game that was summer, and that would have been like what, June? Like summer is June, so.
Let's see. I want to check something real quick because I'm about to make a comparison to somebody. I need to see when these released because this might be similar. But let's see.
What are we looking at?
I'm just trying to think of like the release. I'm thinking back on the release when the PS3 came out and the release
November, right?
Yeah, and the release of Final Fantasy 12.
That prior November, I believe.
Because they were both 2006, right?
It came out in March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
March 2006. Okay. That's kind of close, but I was just thinking like if there's been a year like where a new console comes out, but there's still like games that are kind of heavily anticipated that are still like in that same time frame of release.
All the time. PlayStation 2, they put out what, God of War 3, and that was after the PS3 had come out. So
no, you said
no, it's 2. You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
2.
It's 2.
God of War 2 on the PS2.
I mean, honestly, I think it could be in that. I don't know if it'll like hit that summer mark if we got some games that are still coming out for the Switch 1. I would say maybe fall.
Okay.
I think there's like to give it enough time for all these games to settle down and come out, and then give it maybe a little bit of a buffer, and then they maybe show like some news and say, "Hey, it's time. Switch 2 is here. We got everything. We got all our ducks in a row and everything sorted out for the Switch 1. Now we about to show y'all what we got for the second one." I don't think that's too far fetched because, like I said, we're definitely seeing them in like a end game, so to speak, with these games. And like I said, one thing I mentioned earlier, I always remember like most games will be like the heavy hitters, like the super AAA heavy hitters are always like at the end of a game's life cycle or a system's life cycle. But it seems like with the Switch, it's like these are some like Say said double A games. There's like some pretty solid games, but they don't look like, oh, this is like triple A, like Breath of the Wild type. And I normally I would always see that with like Wind Waker, I think. If I'm not mistaken, Twilight Princess was kind of that way, like that big Zelda games like at the end of the cycle. So yeah, I think somewhere in fall, like a little buffer, and it could be, they show like, hey, it's time, come get this Switch 2, man. Come off it.
That's a good pick. Terrence, what about you, man?
So I think because it's funny you mentioned that sizzle reel, Sage. I think that reel actually was pretty important just because it did show you like a timeline of what to expect for the Switch pretty much leading up to its like the end of it. And with Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon being the last game that they showed for summer 2024, I think that's around the time that we can start to expect like Super Switch or Switch 2 news to come out. Like I think that April to June window is when we're going to get an announcement of Nintendo's next console. They're going to reveal it, talk about the specs, probably not give a price or anything just yet. Pretty much what I think they're going to do is that like around that E3 window is when they're going to reveal the console, and then pretty much spend the rest of the summer kind of like slowly hyping it up, revealing what games are going to come out for it, etc. And then I think in the fall is when we're going to see a release. So whether that's going to be November or maybe it could even be September or October, that's up to Nintendo. But I think a fall release is probably the best bet for Nintendo's next console right now, just because I think that's probably the best way for them to maximize Switch sales and also maximize their next console sales. Because right now with their slate announced, they're banking on people still buying the Switch, and so they don't want you wouldn't reveal the next console when you still want your current console to sell. So they're probably going to hold off as long as they can. And so I think that E3 window, when Luigi's Mansion comes out, that's when they're going to reveal it. And then coming to the fall, that's when they're going to release it. So that's my speculation.
Okay. Will, where you at?
What's up? All right. So as we know with the sizzle reel, we've seen everything we need to see. I do think that I agree with Devin. I think it's going to be like a fall type of thing. It's going to be a fall console. But I also truly believe that they kind of want to keep pushing the Switch for a little bit, just for a little bit past what they're going to put out last anyway. So I can see it being fall. Fall is where I think the Switch 2, Switch Pro, or, the Nintendo Stingray or whatever they want to call it is going
Nintendo
to
Zip
be
Zap.
out.
The Magic Card.
Nintendo, the knick-knack.
The Gyarados.
The Poliwag.
Gyarados. Yeah, but I think that's where it's probably going to land. It's going to land in fall. If they do mess around and put it like summer or midsummer or something like that, that'd be a little weird. But I think the only way they can kind of, in a way, get away with that is if, like we talked about in the previous podcast, backwards compatibility. If they throw that out there, then they could possibly get away with that. If they mess around and try to start showing us something, and they don't mention that, and they mess around and go to a new format or something, then they have a problem on their hands. Other than that, it's a fall console. I can see that.
What a shitstorm if somehow the proof leaked that there's no backwards compatibility. That would just fucking ruin this thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. People have been going back and forth on whether or not they think it's going to be backwards compatible. Like, you're starting to see people talk about like the specs, like the internal specs and whatnot, but like it's still a little too early. Even though like Nintendo by now would have had to have understood like, okay, it's going to be backwards compatible. Like, nobody is willing to just come out and say it just yet. So, Rakeem, where do you stand?
So when I was thinking about it, as we like I said, we sizzle reel like that really revealed that it's not going to be early next year. But if I was a betting man and thinking about like how consoles work, I could see the game the system being revealed at E3 or Summer Games Fest next year. E3, Lord have mercy. Nintendo Direct Live, when it gets revealed, if I was a betting man, I could see it specifically around November, December, around holidays, because you want to get those consoles around Christmas time, like for the Christmas kind of rush.
Right.
And depending on what they have around that time, you probably want it close to the holiday to get in people's minds. So November or December will be, I think, a good spot for it. It'll be whatever the new gimmick is. Who knows? You probably could be a DJ and get a turntable and play your game like this. You get a bet and you
I think
magically hit the
EA
bet.
killed that idea already.
Yeah,
Oh, no, not
they
EA.
definitely did.
What? Wait, was
Activision?
it EA? Activision. That's who it was. Activision. Yeah.
No, that was
Activision.
Harmonix.
Yeah, Activision Harmonix. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that
With
game.
DJ
Yeah.
Hero. Yeah, that's why I'm.
Yeah,
DJ
DJ Hero. but yeah, if I was betting, man, I think about November, December, that time period. You want it close to the holidays, for the system, the big system selling movement around that time. That's always probably the best time to sell a console, to be honest. And of course, you need a little time from an announcement to build the hype up. Announce what the launch titles are going to be. Hopefully, we see some big, nice titles or some games I'd like to see on there. Maybe Donkey Kong. The new 3D Mario game. I could see
that feels like a given.
Yeah,
Jack
that
Paul.
seemed like the big one.
Yeah.
On if
I
it
just
switches.
caught that.
If it's Zip Zap exclusive, I ain't gonna lie, man. Sony dropped the ball.
Well, promise they did.
Yeah, I swear.
But yeah. So specifically, I think that time frame is pretty good. I like to see a movement like from announcement in the summertime to giving a few months to kind of build hype around it, the specs and everything. We already have heard rumors that people have seen the new console. So
That's what they say.
wheels are in motion right now. So, I would not be surprised to see it get announced. I mean, it could get announced early in the summer, to be honest, if people are already kind of rumoring about it. But yeah, I think it's going to be late next year, around November, December, to kind of get into the holiday season. Boom, boom, boom. Get those big console sales out. Give enough time to give your games announced for the console. The specs, whatever the gimmick is, ping pong table. I don't know. You know how Nintendo does, man. They got to be the innovators, man. You have a wrestling match.
It's never good enough.
You get a full ring with two wrestlers and you play. You do wrestling matches, play the game. Whatever it is, it's gonna be amazing. So I think November, December next year. That's my guess.
Solid.
I think for me, I do think the sizzle reel does matter. But I also think that Luigi's Mansion isn't something that people should take as a sign. It's like, oh, well, they can't put out Switch 2 yet. Luigi's Mansion coming out. Like,
That's just a remake, remaster.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
too.
a remake of the GameCube, or remaster of the GameCube game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's they can't put that out. Like, I don't think that. I think everybody should pump the brakes on that. But I do think the sizzle reel matters in that. Look, man. We've got a lot of other games that do matter to us that are coming out. And like ultimately the fact that they haven't, you would have wanted to start talking about that now. Like I think the Switch 2 originally, the original Switch was got like a commercial randomly in September, if I'm not mistaken. Like let me double check that. But I think that's what wound up happening. Like initially it was revealed in like a little commercial and sometime in the I stand corrected. October 2016. That was the first time, and it was just like a little commercial, and they were like hyping it up and whatnot. And I think, maybe if we see something in a month, maybe, but I doubt it, right? I feel like we're out of the range of that. And if we're out of the range of that, that means we're out of the range of like a release in March. But I don't think we're out of the range of a release in like the summer, which would, again, like, I can't stress this enough. That the Switch was sold out in March. Like when it first launched, it was sold out throughout all of March, throughout all of April. You couldn't find it anywhere on the shelves. And then when it came time for the holiday, they were sold out again. They got two falls out of it. They got two holiday seasons out of it where they were just constantly sold out, constantly like you couldn't get a hold of it. Like somebody was always trying to buy it. Somebody always wanted it like a copy. And I think they probably can get away with that again if they market it right, if they have the right launch lineup, if they have the right look to the system. And so like what you would want is maybe to hit in like June or something like that, or July. Like you might be able to come out in like July or August, but that would of course mean that they would have to start talking about it in March. Like you'd have to be like, okay, well, we've got Switch 2 or whatever, Super Zip Zap or whatever the fuck they gonna wind up calling it. They'd have to come out and start talking about it in March and start showing off the games. And then like, and like I could even see it being as late as September. and like maybe it comes out early or mid-September, and then of course that gives you time to still have like a holiday season, and you come out with one game in September, and then you come out with one big AAA title, 3D Mario or whatever, to sell the system, and then you come out with another title in December that can grab the people. Maybe it's Xenoblade Chronicles X or something. I don't know, like whatever, because that's what it wound up being last year, like or last time. It was like Zelda Breath of the Wild in March, and then Mario Odyssey in November, and then for December it was just Xenoblade 2. So like maybe they can get away with something like that. You just have like a really packed launch lineup for like September, October, November, December. You can get away with that. So I think I'm gonna lean towards like summer to fall, like because that is what we're hearing. Like the early release, like the current leaks and rumors are in the favor of like summer, and I'm kind of along those lines. I just think it's too easy to get away with doing 2 falls now because people are so eager to like spend money. So
yeah,
I want to pose one
money
thing
they don't
real
have.
quick.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
I just thought about it. The games, we all said the games are like a lot of remakes, a lot of counter AA titles. Is it possible that this may be like a ploy? Because I think with Twilight Princess was on GameCube, then it switched over to the Wii U. Is it possible that they're trying to test like backwards compatibility for like these lesser AA games to see how stuff works from the Switch 1 to Switch 2? Because I don't know, I just thought about that for some reason when you talked about them. Like, could this be like, okay, we're going to test these games out to see how the backwards compatibility could work for the Switch 2, and we just going to try these lesser AA titles as our like prototypes to see if that works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so, because like that wouldn't be like you do all that testing internally, I would imagine.
Okay.
And so like something that we wouldn't know about. But what you could do is I guess distance yourself from all the big Switch hardware over the last like several years by like, oh, here's just a bunch of smaller titles. And then, you know, when you launch the Switch 2, it's like, hey, there's no backwards compatibility. And people are like, oh, no, I'm so mad. But I mean, like, what am I not getting a chance to play? Luigi's Mansion 2, like, you know, whatever. So,
yeah, that's kind of how I was thinking. I meant to mention that is that I think with all these remakes, it's interesting to see Nintendo do so many remakes this year, and I think the reason for that is because it's kind of stuff that they can throw away a bit more. It's like easier to just do remakes than like full fresh ideas and like new IPs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like save that for the next console, and while the Switch is on its way out, just do stuff that you know is gonna sell, and it's pretty easy, just kind of like remake something like Paper Mario, you know. Well, I mean, not easy, but you know, it's like the idea is already there.
It's less work than building a whole new game.
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea is already there. We're just taking the game and we're making it look better for modern times. That's it. So I think that's probably the idea behind all these remakes coming out. It's just like it's an easier thing to do when your console's on its last legs.
Yeah.
The other end of that is that it just because like even if they were like, even if you did release big titles in your last year that were backwards compatible, it's like, well, what if like it's not going to run that much better? And so you'd want something that like, you don't want to have to start doing the thing that Sony and Microsoft had to do for like the first 2 years of the lifespan, where it's just like, oh, well, we're just going to release updates to these old games or to these new games, or we're going to sell whole new versions. Like, you know, you have the PS4 version and the PS5 version, and the PS5 version was sometimes better. Sometimes the PS4 version was better. It was weird. But like, you don't want to cause that kind of confusion with multiple SKUs. Like I think it's just easier to do these. And then if it's backwards compatible, it's like, well, yeah, but it wasn't really taxing the Switch in the first place. So of course it's not going to be that big of a deal. You're not losing out on a lot. So maybe I think that might be part of it too. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode. If you liked it, I need a few things from you. I need you to do us a favor. Hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter, follow us on TikTok. I need you to tell everybody you know, tell all your friends, tell all your family you don't know. You might make a new friend. And do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace out.